Hello everyone. So today's soap design was actually inspired by a dilemma that I recently had. So I had a custom order that was placed where my client had specifically requested that these cameo embed pieces be placed onto the front of the cold process bars themselves. When she first requested that, I thought no biggie, shouldn't be a problem. But when I began to search online as to the best way to attach a melt and pour piece onto the face of cold process soap, there really wasn't much info out there, and what little information I could find seemed to point to that I could just melt down a little bit of melt and pour soap base and actually use that as glue to glue the embed piece onto the face of my soap. Well, I gave that a try and I didn't have much luck. And I really think when it comes to that method seemed to work best if one were to be attaching melt and pour pieces onto an actual melt and pour bar of soap. But when it came to attaching the melt and pour piece onto cold process soap, I didn't have the best results with it. And the reason why is because, and I'll show you here as an example, I would place the melt and pour piece down onto the cold process bar using the melted down melt and pour glue, and it seemed to be sturdy and it seemed to stick really well, but the slightest bit of pressure and it would just pop right off. So it became really frustrating that I couldn't figure out how to affix melt and pour embeds onto the face of cold process soap. So I began experimenting and I tried a couple different things, and one way really worked really well for me. So this was my success right here. And as you can see, no amount of pressure or prying or pulling is going to make this pop off. It is firmly attached onto the face of this cold process bar. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's gonna take a hammer and a chisel to get these two pieces apart. So I wanted to share how I was able to affix this melt and pour soap piece onto the face of cold process soap without it popping off and having it actually be very long lasting and something where the embed piece wouldn't just pop off in the hands of the user of the soap. So to do that, I whipped up my artistic abilities today, and we're going to be making, here's a little mock draw up of what I decided to make today. And so it's going to be, the name is still up in the air. I put blossoming bubbles, but it could be blossoms and bubbles, something with bubbles. But some of these melt and pour bubbles are going to be actually inlaid into the soap itself. Some of them are actually going to be coming out of the bar of soap by way of these little melt and pour embeds that I have made, so that it will give the bar an actual 3D effect. And I thought that would look really cool. So the fragrance oil we're going to be using today, I thought would be absolutely perfect for this colorful, bubbly theme of a soap that we'll be making. It is Nature's Fragrance's Friday Nights Fragrance Oil. It is such an absolutely beautiful and fresh and feminine aroma. It has top notes of orange, middle notes of jasmine, and base notes of amber, musk, and woods. And to me, it just really smells like a classy, upscale perfume that I would wear out on a night out on the town. It's just absolutely beautiful. So stick around and let's make some 3D cold process soap together using Nature's Fragrance Friday Night Fragrance Oil and these melt and pour embeds that I will show you how to affix onto the face of cold process soap and how to get them to stay there. So let's make some soap, shall we? Alright, so the actual making of this cold process batch is going to be quite simple. It's going to be an all-white batch, and then we will embed these 2 columns of soap that I made. And then the actual color of the soap is going to come from those beautiful little bubble embeds that we made that will be placed on later after the soap has been cut. So let's get started on making this soap. I have got my lye solution right here. Because I wanted this soap to be as white as possible, I'm not using my regular aloe juice blend. Today I'm just using distilled water with some Tussa silk, and I've also added my sodium lactate to it as well. So it's time to get this added to our batch oils, and everything is at about room temperature right now. I'll get this stirred in to get it nice and incorporated, and then we'll hit it with the stick blender and bring it to a light trace. I'm also going to be using good old-fashioned titanium dioxide to color this batch today, so we'll blend that in as well. And time to add that titanium dioxide. And since I'm not going to be portioning off this batch for any colors, we can go ahead and add our fragrance oil as well. It's been blended with a little bit of kaolin clay. So we'll go ahead and get this added directly to the soap batter. So my fragrance oil has been blended in. It smells absolutely beautiful. So it's time to get this poured. And I'm working at a little bit of a thicker trace than normal today because I want those column pieces of soap that I made to not sink down to the bottom. I want them to stay where I've placed them. I'm gonna pour a little bit on the bottom first. Just kind of even it out a little bit. And then my first column I'm gonna place off to the side, kind of at the lower corner of the bar. And my second column I'm going to place on the opposite side. Set it in right about there. And we'll just cover with the remaining soap batter. So I've poured the remaining soap batter over my column pieces that I've embedded into the batch itself. So now I'm just going to wait for this to set up, and then we'll come back and pipe the top. All right, so the top of my soap has set up. Now it's time to get it piped. And for the piping, I'm just going to do all white again. So again, we're going to add some titanium dioxide to it. I'm going to add some more of this lovely fragrance oil called Friday Nights from Nature's Fragrance. And we'll get this whipped up and get a soap frosting going so we can pipe the top. I'm going to be using a round piping tip today to go along with our bubbly theme. So let's get started on making this soap frosting so we can get the top of our soap piped and get some of our embeds on there. But again, remember, a lot of our embeds aren't going to be going on until after the soap is cut. But enough chit chat for now, let's get going. I'm gonna add the fragrance oil into my batch oils that I have here for my soap frosting. And from here, since I am using water dispersible titanium dioxide that I have pre-dispersed in a bit of distilled water, I'm going to add this directly to my lye solution, and I'll get that stirred in really well. And now time to add the lye solution to my oils and get it whipped up to make some soap frosting. so the top of the soap is piped. It's looking so pretty. It's looking nice and bubbly and round and fluffy. So I am going to, of course, add a little bit of shimmer to this. And since when the bars are finished, it will feature every color of the rainbow and be beautiful and bright and colorful, I thought that a hollow glitter on the top would go perfect with this theme. It's got every color of the rainbow going on in there, and it is an eco-friendly hollow glitter. So I'm gonna get this sprayed onto the top of our soap frosting. So now that the top of the soap has a beautiful rainbow hollow glitter going on, or shimmer I should say, going on, it's time to place the embeds on top. So for the top of this soap, I'm gonna place these red quote-unquote bubbles on top with some leaves. Since this is a bubbles and blossoms or blossoming bubbles, I haven't decided on a name yet, but since it is that kind of soap, this is what will go on top. And then after we cut the soap, I will put the remaining embeds on the actual cut bars themselves. So right now I'm just gonna place these embeds on top, and I'll bring you back when everything's looking pretty. All right, so we are all done for today. There's still more to come, but for right now, we've got our red bubble blossoms on top, and the piping itself has a beautiful rainbow color throughout it in the sparkles that we added, and it's looking good and already looking colorful, but there's more colors to come. I'm going to get this sprayed with a little bit of 91% rubbing alcohol to help prevent soda ash. And then I'll just lightly insulate this for 18 to 24 hours, and we'll be back to add our remaining melt and pour embellishments to the front of our cold process soap. So I'll see you guys back for the cut. Well, we are back the next day, and I even decided on an official name for the soap. I've decided to call it Bloomin' Bubbles. And I even went ahead and cut the bars already, because the actual cut of the soap today isn't as important for what comes after. But right now, they're smelling absolutely incredible. Again, these were made with Nature's Fragrances Friday Night fragrance oil, and it is just such a gorgeous fragrance. It is one of those fragrances that just blossoms in application. To me, the jasmine notes and the amber notes really come out, and it is just such a beautiful and sophisticated scent. So I am just really loving how they're smelling and looking today. But we want to take it from looking like this and create this. So as you can see, some of our soapy bubbles are actually inlaid into the bar itself, and then others come out of it in sort of a 3D effect. Really cool and really pretty, and lots of colors too. Just goes perfect with this beautiful fragrance oil. So I wanted to show you how I was able to attach these melt and pour embed pieces onto the face of cold process soap. Since, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, all of the information that I could find out there, it didn't work for me. I found that melting down melt and pour soap base and using it as glue on cold process soap didn't work out. It just seems that melt and pour soap doesn't want to stick to cold process soap. So I did a bunch of experimenting, and I found a way where I was able to get melt and pour soap pieces to attach to the face of cold process soap and have them stay there for good. So let me show you how I was able to do that, and let's make some bubbly soap. So the first thing that I noticed when it came to experimenting on this whole dilemma that I had was that I got the best adhesion and the best bond of the melt and pour soap piece and the cold process soap when I applied the melt and pour soap piece within the first 24 hours of the cold process soap being cut. So you really want to do this when your soap is fresh. So again, within the first 24 hours of being unmolded and cut, you want to go ahead and attach your melt and pour soap pieces. So we'll go ahead, I'm going to start and I'll do this bar to show you how it's done. So I'm going to lay this flat and I'll start with this little orange embed piece right here. So you want to make sure that any melt and pour soap piece that you are wanting to attach to the face of cold process soap, you want to make sure that it's going to sit completely flush onto the face of the bar, no gaps or anything like that. So what I found was a good way to do that was to take this little knife here, any kind of scraping tool that you have will work just fine as well, and just shave down any parts of that melt and pour soap piece that might be sticking out and creating a hindrance for it to stick completely flush to the face of your cold process bar. So just kind of take it and scrape off any uneven parts and kind of smooth out any edges too. So once you've taken your scraping tool, whatever you choose to use, and you have kind of rounded off any edges and scraped down anything that might be uneven and hindering the soap from being completely flush to the cold process bar, then from here, next step, I've gotten this little cup, distilled water. I know. And you were probably thinking it was going to be something astronomically amazing. Nope, it's just distilled water. But I promise this is what is going to create that super incredible, can't get it apart bond between the melt and pour soap piece and the cold process soap piece as well. So you're going to want a brush that is a very soft bristle brush so you're not ruining the face of your soap, and just dip that into the distilled water. Get it nice and wet, and don't be afraid to get these pieces wet. Don't go sparingly on the water. I mean, don't completely douse your pieces in water, but you want to get a good amount of water on there. So from here, I'm just going to completely saturate the back half of the embed piece, and I mean completely saturate it. And then I'm also going to put a little dab of water on the spot of the cold process bar where I want to affix the melt and pour piece to. So I want to put it right about there. So just a dab of water on the cold process bar too. And then from here, just stick it on. Now it's gonna want to slip slide around, and that's totally fine, but just kind of hold it in place. And then once it's not slip sliding around everywhere, just take the bar and apply pressure for a good 10-15 seconds. Just apply steady, good pressure. And then once the embed piece will stay there on its own, you just want to clean up the edges a little bit with a Q-tip, because naturally some of that water is gonna want to get pushed out from underneath that embed piece. So just take your Q-tip and just kind of clean up any water that might have been pushed out from underneath that embed piece and get it off your cold process soap. And just clean it up. And that's all there is to it. And then after that, my next piece of advice is don't touch it. Don't mess with it. Don't try to pull it off. Nothing for at least 8 hours. Just let the soap sit. Let that bond between the melt and pour soap and the cold process soap form. Let it become strong, and then you can come back 8 to 12 hours later and mess around with it if you want. But prior to that, just leave it be, let it sit, and let that bond and let that good adhesion form between the two types of soap. So let's do this again. So next we'll affix the little purple bubble embeds. So again, I am going to take these little edges here that are going to prevent it from sitting completely flush to my soap, and I'm just going to trim those off or scrape them off so that it's nice and smooth. So once I have kind of scraped off any edges of the Melt and Pour soap piece and made it nice and smooth, I'm going to take my soft bristle brush and apply a good amount of this distilled water directly to the Melt and Pour soap piece again. And then also place a dab on the actual bar of soap where I want to place the embed. Alright, stick it on down. It'll try to slip slide around. Once it's no longer slip sliding around, then take the bar and apply nice, steady, even pressure for a good 10-15 seconds. Then we'll just come back with our Q-tip and clean up any little bits of water that might have escaped from underneath that Melt and Pour embed. And just dry the soap off. And there you have it. Let's stick the other ones on, shall we? There you have it. With good old-fashioned distilled water, you have a way to attach Melt and Pour soap pieces to the face of cold processed soap and have them stay there for good. No more popping off. It'll stay on the soap for as long as the user is using and enjoying it. And with these particular soap bars, I really think that they're going to be enjoyed because not only do they look so fun, but they smell incredible too. So if you would like to try this design in your own soapy creations at home, or if you'd like to get your hands on some of this beautiful Friday Night's fragrance oil from Nature's Fragrance, please feel free to give this a try in your own crafty endeavors. And don't forget to visit www.naturesfragrance.com. So I'm going to get the rest of these soaps looking beautiful and bubbly and get some pictures taken. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, you guys, and we'll catch you all next time. Bye!